The conference room on Valora Station smelled like recycled air and tension. Ambassador Giwan Li sat perfectly still at the long metal table, her hands folded in front of her. Across from her, the Thulian warlord Ravik leaned back in his chair. All four of his arms spread wide in a gesture that other species recognized as dominance. His scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Another human complaint," Ravik said, his voice rumbling through the translator device on his chest. "You people talk so much. Always talking, never doing." Jiwan did not react to the insult. She had been Earth's chief negotiator in this sector for 7 years. She had heard worse. Instead, she pulled up a holographic display between them. Images of 3 human cargo vessels appeared, rotating slowly in the blue light. "These ships were seized in neutral space 4 days ago," she said calmly. "Their crews are being held without charge. The cargo was legal under all treaties. We are requesting their immediate release." Ravik laughed, a harsh sound that made the other delegates in the room uncomfortable. There were 12 species represented at this meeting, and most of them looked away. They knew how this would end. The Thulians were powerful. The Thalians took what they wanted. Humans were new to the galaxy, barely 50 years since first contact. New species learned quickly to accept their place. "Request denied," Ravik said. He leaned forward suddenly, all 4 arms slamming onto the table. "Here is my counteroffer. Humans pay tribute. 10% of all cargo passing through this sector. Then maybe we stop taking your ships." Captain Minho Park stood quietly in the corner of the room. He wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic fleet, and his expression never changed as he watched the exchange. His tactical officer, Heon Kim, stood beside him, one hand resting near the communication device on his belt. G1 looked at Ravik for a long moment. Then she stood up slowly. The room went quiet. Even the observers from the Galactic Council stopped their whispered conversations. "This behavior is unacceptable," G1 said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried through the entire room. "Cease immediately. Release our ships and crews within 24 hours. This is your first warning." Ravik stared at her. Then he began laughing again, louder this time. Several other Thulian officers in the room joined him. The sound echoed off the walls, a warning. Ravik stood up, towering over the human ambassador. "Humans give warnings. This is what we hear about you. Always warning, never acting. You are weak. Your species talks about peace and diplomacy, while real powers take what they need." Giwan did not step back. She met his eyes calmly. 24 hours, she repeated. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Captain Minho and Han followed her without a word, as the door closed behind them. One of the other delegates, a furred creature from the Kelvin homeworld named Borak, watched them go. He had been trading in this sector for 30 years. He had dealt with humans before. There was something about the way the ambassador had spoken that made his fur stand on end. In the corridor outside, Minho walked beside Juan. "He will not comply," he said quietly. "I know," Giwan replied. She did not slow her pace as they headed toward the docking bay where their ship waited. But protocol must be followed. They get their warning, and if they take more ships? Han asked G1 stopped walking. She turned to face both officers. Her expression was tired, but determined. Then they get a second warning, and if they continue after that, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The HSS Harmony was a mid-sized diplomatic vessel, sleek and silver, designed for long-range negotiations rather than combat. But Minho knew his ship carried more than just meeting rooms and comfortable quarters. Like all human ships, the Harmony had weapons. Good weapons. They just preferred not to use them. 20-4 hours passed. The Thulians did not release the captured ships. Instead, they seized 2 more human vessels near the trade route to New Jeju colony. The crews were taken prisoner. The cargo was stripped and sold. Mina stood on the bridge of the Harmony when the reports came in. He read through them carefully, checking every detail. Then he opened a communication channel that broadcast across every frequency in the sector. Military channels, civilian channels, diplomatic channels, even the emergency bands. Everyone would hear this. "This is Captain Minho Park of the Human Diplomatic Fleet," he said. His voice was calm and professional. "To the Thulian expansion fleet, you have ignored our first warning. You have continued hostile actions against human vessels and personnel. This is unacceptable. We are now issuing a second warning. Release all captured ships and crews immediately. You have 48 hours to comply." He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then he added, "You are running out of chances." The transmission ended. On Valora's station, Ravik heard the message and laughed again. He sent orders to his fleet to increase patrols. If humans wanted to play games with warnings, the Thulians would show them the price of weakness. But Borak heard the message too, and this time the Kelvin merchant did not laugh. He remembered something from years ago during a minor dispute in the Orion sector. He had been there when a human captain had negotiated for weeks, always calm, always patient. Then the other side had pushed too far. Borak remembered the words the human had used. Just before everything changed, he began quietly sending messages to his trading partners. "Move your ships out of Thulian space," he told them. "Do it now. Do not ask questions." They asked anyway. "Why? What is happening?" Borak looked at the star charts showing human ship positions. "Because I have seen this before. Not exactly this, but close enough. Humans do not give warnings as a negotiating tactic. They give warnings because they actually mean them. And when humans run out of warnings..." He trailed off, checking the routes for his own ships. "Just trust me. Leave now while you can." On the bridge of the Harmony, Hien looked at his captain. "Do you think they will comply this time?" Minho shook his head slowly. "No. Species like the Thulians do not understand restraint. They think patience is weakness. They think warnings mean we are afraid to fight." He turned to look at the view screen, where stars glittered in the darkness of space. "They will learn. They always do. But first, they need to make their choice." Giwan entered the bridge, carrying a datapad. She looked at both officers. "The Galactic Council has sent a message. They suggest we consider paying the tribute. They say it is easier than conflict. Several other species have agreed to similar arrangements with the Thulians." "And our response?" Minho asked. G1 set down the datapad. "I told them that Earth does not pay tribute to pirates. I told them that we will handle this situation according to our protocols." She looked out at the stars, and I reminded them that we still have one more warning to give before any other action is taken. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Heian spoke softly. "I have been reviewing Thulian military capabilities. They have significant forces, 17 conquered systems, hundreds of warships." "I know," Juan said. "I have seen the reports. And if we reach the third warning..." Guan and Minho exchanged a glance. Then Jiwan smiled, just slightly. It was not a happy smile. "Then we will show them why humans prefer diplomacy. Because the alternative is not something we enjoy. But it is something we are very, very good at." Outside the ship, space was quiet and peaceful. Stars burned in the distance. Trade routes crossed the darkness between worlds, and somewhere in that vast emptiness, the Thulian expansion fleet continued hunting for human ships, confident in their power, certain of their superiority. They had no idea that the countdown had already begun. The colony transport, ship Bright Future, carried 15,000 people. Families heading to New Jeju, scientists, farmers, teachers, children. The ship was massive and slow, designed for comfort during the 3-week journey rather than speed or defense. It had basic shields and emergency thrusters, but no weapons. It did not need weapons. Colony transports traveled protected routes through space that was supposed to be safe. The attack came without warning. 6 Thulian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in the transport's path. The Bright Future's captain tried to run, but the ship was too slow. Within minutes, Thulian weapons had disabled the engines. Boarding pods latched onto the hull like metal parasites. Lieutenant Doyon Han sat at his monitoring station aboard, a human listening post 3 light-years away. He watched the distress signal flash across his screen, and his blood went cold. He immediately opened a priority channel to the Harmony. "Captain Park," he said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "We have a situation. The bright future has been attacked. Thulians. They are boarding now." Minho was in the conference room with Giwan when the message came through. He closed his eyes for just a moment. Then he opened them, and his expression was stone. "Casualties. Unknown. The ship is intact. They disabled it rather than destroyed it." "They want hostages," Giwan said quietly. She stood up and walked to the view screen. "They are escalating. Testing us." Minho nodded. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All human ships in the sector, this is Captain Park. We have a hostage situation. The bright future has been taken by Thulian forces. All vessels are to hold position and await further orders. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage." He switched to a different channel, this one heavily encrypted. "Lieutenant Han, get me Admiral Choi. Priority Alpha." Admiral Salman Choi commanded the 3rd Battle Group of Earth's Defense Fleet. Her forces were stationed 2 systems away. Officially on training exercises, she appeared on the screen within seconds. Her short gray hair and sharp eyes made her look exactly like what she was. A veteran of every major conflict since humans had entered space. "I have been monitoring the situation," she said before Minho could speak. 15,000 civilians. The Thulians have crossed a line. "We are still in the warning phase," Minho reminded her. "Protocol must be followed." "I understand protocol, Captain," Salman replied. Her voice was hard. "I also understand that children are on that ship." "How long until you issue the second warning?" "It will be transmitted within the hour. After that, they have 48 hours. And if they harm the civilians?" The question hung in the air. Minho looked at Giwan. The ambassador's face was pale, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Then the 48 hours becomes irrelevant. The galactic conventions are clear. Harming civilians during a blockade situation is an act of war. At that point, we move to Phase 3 immediately." Salman nodded slowly. "My fleet is ready. 7 battle cruisers, 43 support vessels. We can be at the Bright Futures location in 6 hours. "Negative," Minho said. "Not yet. We'll wait. We see if they take the warning seriously this time." On the Bright Future, the situation was tense. The Thulians had herded all 15,000 passengers into the main cargo bays. Families held each other. Parents covered their children's eyes as armed Thulian soldiers walked among them, weapons ready. The Thulian commander, a scarred veteran named Vorek, stood on a raised platform and addressed the crowd through translators. "You are prisoners of the Thulian expansion," he announced. "Your government will pay for your release. Until then, you will remain here. Obey orders and you will not be harmed. Resist and you will be made an example." A child began crying. The sound echoed through the bay. Minho's voice came through every communication channel in the sector 1 hour later. Every ship, every station, every settlement heard it. The Thulians made sure the hostages heard it too, wanting them to witness human weakness. "This is Captain Minho Park of the Human Diplomatic Fleet. Second warning to the Thulian expansion fleet. You have attacked and boarded a civilian transport vessel. You are holding 15,000 non-combatants hostage. This is a violation of 17 different galactic conventions. Release these people immediately. You have 48 hours to comply." His voice grew quieter, but somehow more intense. "You are running out of chances." Ravik received the message aboard his command ship. He played it for his officers and they all laughed. Then he sent a response. A video transmission broadcast on the same channels. Minho had used. 3 human prisoners from the original captured cargo ships were dragged in front of a camera. Ravik stood behind them. "Humans," he said, "you give warnings. We give demonstrations." He executed all 3 prisoners. Quick shots to the head. Their bodies fell. The transmission ended. The galaxy watched in horror. Diplomatic channels lit up with emergency messages. The Galactic Council called for immediate sessions. But the humans said nothing. For 3 hours, there was only silence from human vessels. Borak sat in his ship, now safely in neutral territory. He had convinced most of his trading partners to evacuate Thulian space. Some had listened. Some had not. Those who remained were now frantically trying to leave, but Thulian patrols were preventing any ship movements. They did it, Borak whispered to himself. The fools actually did it. They killed human civilians after a warning. His co-pilot, a young Kelvin named Rena, looked confused. The Thulians have killed many species. Why does this matter? Borak did not answer immediately. He was checking long-range scanners. What he saw made his hands shake, because he finally said, "Most species threaten and then negotiate. Humans are different. They negotiate first. The threats only come when negotiation fails. And when humans stop negotiating," he pointed at the scanner display. 7 massive ships had appeared at the edge of the system where the bright future drifted. Human battle cruisers. They did not move. They did not attack. They just sat there in formation, running dark, almost invisible, except for their identification transponders. Admiral Soman Choi stood on the bridge of her flagship, the HSS Indomitable. She watched the tactical display showing the Thulian forces around the colony transport. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her officers waited for orders. "Maintain position," she said calmly. "All weapon systems on standby. Target locks on every Thulian vessel in range. But no one fires without my direct order." "We wait, Admiral," her tactical officer said. "The hostages. If we wait too long, ... We wait," Soman repeated. "Protocol exists for a reason. The Thulians have been warned. Now they must choose." Aboard the Harmony, Giwan sat in her quarters, working on a datapad. She had been working for hours, compiling information. Every Thulian military base, every warship, every command center, everything that human intelligence had gathered over the past 7 years, she organized it all into a single file. Locations, defensive capabilities, weak points, supply lines. When she finished, she looked at the document for a long moment. Then she sent a copy to Ravik with a single message. "Final warning. This is your last chance to avoid what comes next." Ravik received the file. He opened it and saw detailed schematics of his own fleet, his own bases, his own defenses. For the first time, something that might have been doubt crossed his mind. How did humans have this information? How long had they been gathering it? He crushed the datapad in one of his hands. "They are bluffing," he told his officers. "Humans do not have the strength to threaten us. Send orders to Commander Vorak. Execute 10 more hostages. Show the humans we do not fear their warnings." The order was transmitted. On the bright future, Vorak received it. He selected 10 people at random from the crowd. Guards dragged them forward. People screamed. Children cried out for their parents. Lieutenant Doyan Han watched it happen through intercepted video feeds. His hands shook as he opened a channel to Minho. "Captain, they are executing hostages. 10 of them. Right now." Minho closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had changed in his expression. He opened a new channel, this one going directly to Admiral Somin Choi. He spoke 3 words. "Phase 3. Execute." Then he opened the sector-wide broadcast channel one more time. His voice was still calm. Still professional, but there was an edge to it now that made even friendly species pause in their daily activities to listen.
Now I'm getting annoyed.
That was all he said. 3 simple words. But those words spread through the galaxy faster than any news report. Every species that had ever dealt with humans, everyone who had studied human history, everyone who understood what humans really were, stopped what they were doing, because those 3 words meant the warnings were over, and now Earth's warships would attack. The transformation happened in minutes. Ships that had been sitting dark suddenly blazed with active sensors. Weapon systems that had been on standby powered up to full combat readiness. Admiral Salman Choi's 7 battlecruisers spread into attack formation, and the 43 support vessels moved with practiced precision into supporting positions. "All ships," Salman said calmly, her voice broadcasting to every vessel in her fleet. Execute pattern anvil. Target packages are already loaded. Fire on my mark. On the bright future, Commander Vorak had just finished executing the first hostage when every alarm on the Thulian ships began screaming. His communications officer looked up in shock. Commander, multiple human warships. They are locking weapons on us. Impossible, Vorak said. The human fleet was 3 light-years away. They are here now, the officer replied, his voice rising in panic. 67 ships. No, wait. More contacts appearing? 80, 90? They are decloaking all around us? Vorak stared at his tactical display. Human ships were appearing throughout Thulian space. Not just near the bright future. Everywhere. 15 different systems simultaneously. It was as if they had been waiting in position for days. It's invisible and patient. It's just watching. Because they had been. Admiral Soman looked at the Thulian warships surrounding the colony transport. 6 ships against her fleet. The math was not complicated. Tactical, transmit, surrender terms. They have 30 seconds to power down weapons and release the hostages. After that, we fire. The transmission went out. For 15 seconds, nothing happened. Vorak stared at his screens, calculating odds that did not favor him. Then pride and training took over. We are Thulian. We do not surrender to anyone. All ships opened fire on the human fleet. The 6 Thulian warships opened fire. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked through space toward the human ships. Point defense systems on the human vessels intercepted most of the incoming fire. A few shots made it through, splashing against shield systems that had been designed specifically to handle Thulian weapons. Return fire, Salman said. Disable only. We want prisoners. The human response was surgical. Precise lance beams struck Thulian weapon arrays, destroying them without breaching the main hulls. Missiles detonated near engine sections, electromagnetic pulses scrambling propulsion systems. Within 90 seconds, all 6 Thulian warships were drifting, helpless and dark. Marine teams, you are clear for boarding, Salman ordered. Priority 1 is hostage recovery. Priority 2 is prisoner capture. Move. Assault shuttles launched from the human battlecruisers. They latched onto the Thulian ships and the bright future simultaneously. Marines in powered armor cut through hull plating and poured inside. The Thulians on the colony transport tried to resist, but human Marines had trained for exactly this scenario. Captain Jisoo Yoon led the assault team that breached the main cargo bay where the hostages were held. She moved through the door with her squad behind her, weapons up but fingers off triggers. They had rules of engagement, very specific rules. Thulian forces, she called out through external speakers. Drop your weapons. You are surrounded. Your ships are disabled. You have no support coming. Drop your weapons now. Several Thulians tried to fight. They learned quickly that human-powered armor was much more sophisticated than they had believed. Jisoo herself took down 3 soldiers without firing a shot, using non-lethal force to incapacitate them. Her squad moved with the same discipline. Within 5 minutes, every Thulian soldier in the bay was on the ground, restrained with magnetic cuffs. The 15,000 hostages stared in shock. One woman holding a small child began crying with relief. You came, she whispered. You actually came. Jisoo removed her helmet. She looked tired, but her voice was gentle. Of course we came. You are ours. We protect our own. She activated her communication system. Admiral Choi, cargo bay secure, all hostages safe. We have 9 hostages who need immediate medical attention. The Thulians killed one before we could intervene. Summon's voice came back, hard as steel. Copy that. Medical teams are on the way. Status of Thulian prisoners? 47 captured. 0 casualties on our side. Good. Secure them all. Full documentation. Every single one. While the rescue operation was happening near the bright future, the real scope of the human response became clear across the sector. In the Thulian home system, 30 human warships had appeared. They did not attack the civilian population centers. Instead, they struck every military installation with frightening accuracy. The orbital defense platforms that had protected the Thulian homeworld for 300 years were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. The central military command base, hidden deep in a mountain range, was hit by kinetic strikes that turned the mountain into dust. Shipyards, training facilities, weapons depots, all targeted and eliminated. Fighter pilot Yunha Bei led a squadron through the chaos of the Thulian home defense fleet. She flew her interceptor with the kind of precision that came from thousands of hours of training and dozens of simulations running every possible Thulian combat response. Dragon 2, break left, she called to her wingman. Thulian fighter, coming up from Sector 4. I have him. Her targeting system locked onto the enemy's ship. She did not fire missiles or energy weapons. Instead, she used focused electromagnetic pulse cannons that disabled the Thulian craft without destroying it. The enemy pilot lost all power and began drifting. A human recovery ship would pick them up later. Target disabled, she reported, moving to next contact. This pattern repeated across 15 star systems. Human forces struck with overwhelming superiority, but they did not wage a war of annihilation. They disabled. They captured. They documented everything on Valora Station. The Galactic Council watched through intercepted transmissions and emergency reports flooding in from Thulian territory. Observer Grin, a tall reptilian creature from the Vaxel species, stood before the assembled delegates. The humans have deployed 140 warships, he said, his voice shaking slightly. They are systematically dismantling Thulian military capacity across the entire sector. Casualty reports are still coming in, but initial estimates suggest Thulian military losses are catastrophic. Human losses. He paused, checking his datapad again, as if he could not believe what he was reading. Human losses are minimal. 3 ships with minor damage, 17 personnel injured. 0 deaths. The council chamber erupted in shocked conversation. One delegate stood up. This cannot be accurate. The Thulians have hundreds of warships. They've conquered 17 systems. How can humans destroy them so easily? Gren pulled up holographic recordings of the battles. The council watched. As human ships moved in perfect coordination, as their weapons struck with computer-guided accuracy, as their fighters flew patterns that seemed almost prescient in their timing, they are not destroying anything easily, Gren said quietly. Look closely. Every movement is calculated. Every shot is precise. This is not rage or chaos. This is systematic military doctrine executed with absolute efficiency. The humans have been preparing for this. Not hoping for it, not wanting it, but preparing for it. He switched to a different recording, this one showing human Marines boarding a Thulian base. And watch this. They are not executing prisoners. They are processing them. Documentation. Evidence collection. They're building a legal case while they fight. Back in Thulian space, Ravik sat in his command ship, watching his empire collapse around him. Reports came in one after another. Fleet destroyed. Base captured. Installation eliminated. The humans were everywhere, moving like they had perfect intelligence on every Thulian position. They did, because they had been watching for 7 years. His communication officer looked up, fear obvious in his expression. Commander Ravik. Incoming transmission. Human vessel. They are hailing us directly. Put it through, Ravik said. His pride was gone now, replaced by something he had never felt before. Fear Captain Minho Park appeared on the screen. He stood on the bridge of the Harmony, his uniform perfect, his expression calm. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Commander Ravik, Minho said, your fleet has been neutralized. Your military installations have been captured or destroyed. You have no ships coming to reinforce you. You have no bases to retreat to. This fight is over, Ravik said nothing. What could he say? Minho continued. You were warned 3 times. You chose not to listen. You chose to see our patience as weakness. You chose to harm our people. His voice grew quieter. Now you face the consequences. Surrender your command ship. You and your officers will be taken into custody. You will face trial for piracy, murder, and violations of galactic warfare conventions. And if I refuse, Ravik asked, though he already knew the answer. Minho looked at him for a long moment. Then my admiral will reduce your ship to debris, and we will collect whatever is left for the trial. Either way, you will face justice. The only choice you have is whether you die first or answer for what you have done." The transmission ended. Rivik looked around his bridge. His officers avoided his eyes. Slowly, he reached for the communication controls. "Human fleet," he said, his voice rough. We surrender." Within hours, the fighting stopped. Not because the Thulians had won. Not because negotiations had been reached. But because there was simply nothing left of the Thulian military to fight with. 17 conquered systems found themselves suddenly free as human. Forces destroyed the occupation fleets and bases holding them. Admiral Soman Choi stood on her bridge, reviewing casualty reports. Her tactical officer approached quietly. "Final numbers, Admiral. Thulian military forces eliminated, 97%. Civilian casualties from our strikes, 0. Human casualties, 33 injured, 0 killed. Prisoners taken, over 12,000. Sami nodded slowly. "And the hostages? All 15,000 recovered safely. Medical teams are treating the injured. The families are being transported to New Jeju as originally planned. Good." Somin looked at the view screen, watching human ships patrol through what had once been Thulian territory. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. We are not occupiers. Begin withdrawal to defensive positions. Leave peacekeeping forces to ensure stability, but I want our main fleet ready to return to Earth within the week." The officer hesitated. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting a meeting. They want to understand what happened here." Salman smiled without humor. "What happened is simple. We gave warnings. They did not listen. Now they know what happens when humans stop asking nicely. Schedule the meeting. I have a feeling we will need to explain this to a lot of species who suddenly realize they do not understand humans as well as they thought they did." 3 weeks after the fighting stopped, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. News reports played on every major network. Diplomatic channels buzzed with analysis. Military strategists from a dozen species studied human combat recordings, trying to figure out how such a devastating victory had been achieved so quickly. Sun Wunam sat in a small office on Valora Station, surrounded by holographic displays and datapads. He was a military prosecutor, and his job was to build a legal case against the Thulian leadership. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings, ship logs, testimony from prisoners, testimony from rescued hostages. Every piece of evidence had been collected, documented, and verified. "This is excessive," one of his assistants said, looking at the mountains of documentation. "We have enough to convict them 10 times over. Why continue gathering evidence?" Sun Wu looked up from his work. He was a thin man with tired eyes and careful hands. "Because we are not just prosecuting criminals. We are establishing precedent. Every species in the galaxy is watching this trial. They need to see that humans do not act on emotion or revenge. We act on law, on justice, on evidence that cannot be disputed." He pulled up a video recording. It showed a Thulian base being captured by human marines. The footage was clear and detailed. Every step of the operation was documented. The marines announced themselves. They gave surrender terms. When Thulians tried to fight, the marines used minimum necessary force. Prisoners were immediately processed, given medical attention, and had their rights explained to them through translators. "This is how we fight," Sun Wu said. "This is what makes us different. Other species conquer and destroy. We disable and document. Because the goal is not victory. The goal is justice." Captain Jisoo Yoon walked through the temporary prison facility that had been set up on a neutral station. 12,000 Thulian prisoners were housed here, sorted by rank and suspected crimes. The facility met 73 different galactic standards for prisoner treatment: clean water, adequate food, medical care, exercise periods, communication with family. A young human marine approached her. "Captain, some of the other species are questioning why we are treating them so well. They say the Thalians would not show us such mercy." Jisoo looked at the rows of cells. "That is exactly why we do it. We do not base our behavior on what our enemies would do. We base it on who we are. These prisoners will face trial. They will face justice. But until that trial happens, they are under our protection. That means we treat them according to our laws, not theirs. She moved to one of the cells where a Thulian officer sat on a metal bench. It was one of the soldiers from the bright future. He looked up as she approached. "Why?" he asked through the translator. "Why do you treat us like this?" "We killed your people." "We would have killed more," Jesu considered the question. "Because we want you to understand something. When you killed our people, you did not hurt just them. You hurt the idea that species can coexist peacefully. You hurt the trust that makes trade and diplomacy possible. That is the real crime. Not just murder, but the destruction of the systems that keep the galaxy from constant war. So you punish us to make an example." "No," Jisoo said firmly. "We prosecute you to prove that justice is possible. To show every species that piracy and violence have consequences that cannot be avoided by being strong or feared. You will face a court. You will have lawyers. You will be allowed to defend yourself. And when you are convicted, because you will be convicted, it will be because the evidence is undeniable. Not because we wanted revenge." Across the galaxy, a diplomatic historian named Zephyr was publishing a paper that would change how the entire galactic community understood human warfare. Zephyr was from the Callan species, a race known for careful observation and detailed record-keeping. He had studied human diplomatic and military actions for 20 years. His paper was titled, "The Human Three-Stage Protocol: How Terror Species Became Peacekeepers." It spread through academic circles rapidly, then broke into popular media. "Humans are unique among spacefaring species," the paper began. "Not because they are stronger or more technologically advanced, but because they have created a system that inverts the normal relationship between military power and diplomatic behavior." Zephyr detailed how most species used military strength to avoid diplomacy. The stronger you were, the less you needed to negotiate. But humans did the opposite. They possessed overwhelming military capability, yet they chose to make that capability their last resort rather than their first. "The three-stage protocol is elegant in its simplicity," the paper continued. "First warning, we can talk about this. Second warning, we really should talk about this. Third stage, we tried to talk about this. What makes this system effective is not the threats. It is the genuine attempt at peaceful resolution that precedes any military action. When humans give warnings, they actually mean them. They actually want you to stop. They actually hope you will choose peace. This is not a negotiating tactic. It is a philosophical position backed by overwhelming force." The paper included interviews with species who had dealt with humans in conflicts before. Borak, the Kelvin merchant, was quoted extensively. "I have seen humans negotiate for months over minor trade disputes," Borak said in the interview. "They will explore every possible peaceful solution. They will compromise on things that other species would fight wars over. But if you mistake that patience for weakness, if you continue to harm their people after they have warned you, then you discover what patient people look like when they stop being patient." On Valora Station, the Galactic Council held a special session. Ambassador Giwan Li stood before the assembled delegates. She looked the same as always, calm, professional, but now when she spoke, every delegate listened with attention that bordered on fear. "The Council has questions about human military actions in the Thulian sector," the Council speaker said. "Some species are concerned about the display of force. They worry about human intentions." Giwan nodded. "I understand the concern. Let me be clear about human intentions. We do not want to be the galaxy's police force. We do not want to conquer territory. We do not want to build an empire. We want to trade peacefully, explore safely, and live without being attacked by pirates and warlords." She pulled up displays showing the captured Thulian systems. The 17 systems that the Thulians conquered are being returned to their original inhabitants. We are not keeping them. We are not installing human governments. We are helping them rebuild their own defense forces, so this does not happen again. One delegate stood up. "But you destroyed the Thulian military completely. That is not defense. That is elimination of a species' power." "We destroyed their capacity for aggression," Guan corrected, "not their capacity for defense. The Thulians can rebuild. but they will rebuild knowing what happens if they choose piracy and conquest again. That is the lesson. Not that humans are strong. That is obvious now. The lesson is that we only use that strength when every other option has been exhausted. Another delegate spoke up, an elderly creature with multiple eyes. And what if other species test you? What if others see this display and think they can gain concessions by pushing you to the edge of violence? Juan smiled slightly. Then they will learn the same lesson the Thulians learned. Humans give warnings because we genuinely want peace. But if you ignore those warnings, if you harm our people, if you continue hostile action after being given every chance to stop, then you will face the consequences. Not eventual consequences. Not negotiated consequences. Immediate, overwhelming, and thorough consequences. The chamber was silent. Captain Minho Park sat in his quarters on the Harmony, writing a report. He detailed every step of the conflict, every warning given, every diplomatic attempt made, every action taken after those attempts failed. The report was hundreds of pages long. It would be submitted to Earth's government, to the Galactic Council, and to the military archives where future commanders would study it. His door chimed. "Come in," he said. Hyun Kim entered, carrying a datapad. "Captain, you asked for casualty reports from all human forces involved in the operation." Minho took the pad and read through it carefully. 33 injured, 0 killed. Against a force that outnumbered us and had prepared defensive positions, he looked up at Hayan. "How did we achieve this?" "Because we were prepared, sir. Because we had studied Thulian tactics for years. Because we waited until we understood their capabilities completely before we acted. Because when we finally moved, we did it with absolute certainty." Minho nodded slowly. "And that is why we give warnings. Not to be polite, not to be diplomatic, but to buy time. Time to study. Time to prepare. Time to ensure that when we act with precision that minimizes risk to our own people." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Every species that sees what we did to the Thulians will draw conclusions. Some will see it as a reason to avoid conflict with humans. That is good. But others will see it as a challenge. They will think they can do better. They will think they can push us and stop before we reach the third warning." "And when that happens," Hayan asked, "then we give them the same chances we gave the Thulians. The same warnings, the same opportunities to choose peace. And if they refuse, we show them the same results." Minho turned back to his officer. "That is the burden of being this effective at warfare. We have to keep proving that we prefer not to fight. Because if we do not, if we start using our military power as our first response instead of our last, then we become the very thing we just defeated." In the prison facility, Ravik sat in his cell. His forearms hung limp. His proud bearing was gone. He had been the commander of an expansion fleet. He had conquered worlds. Now he was a prisoner awaiting trial, and he knew the trial would not go well for him. A human guard approached his cell. It was Jisoo. She carried a datapad. "Commander Ravik," she said, "I have been assigned as witness coordinator for your trial. I need to ask you some questions." Ravik looked at her with dull eyes. "What is the point?" "You have already decided my fate." "No?" Jisoo said. "The court will decide your fate. Based on evidence, you will have lawyers. You will be allowed to present your own case. The trial will be fair." "Fair," Ravik repeated bitterly. "You crush my entire fleet and then offer me a fair trial?" Jisoo sat down outside the cell. "Yes, because the fleet crushing was military action that ended when you surrendered. Now comes justice. They are separate things. We do not punish you for fighting us. Many species fight. We punish you for piracy, for murder of hostages, for violation of warfare conventions. Those are crimes regardless of who wins the battle." She opened the datapad. "Now, I need your testimony about the chain of command for the execution of the hostages on the bright future. You have the right to refuse to answer, and anything you say can be used in your trial. Do you understand?" Ravik stared at her. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was not a happy sound. "You are serious?" After everything, you actually care about legal process. Of course we do, Jisoo said simply. That is the entire point. Anyone can wage war. Anyone can destroy enemies. But building a galaxy where justice is possible, where law means something, where even defeated enemies receive fair treatment, that is much harder. That is what humans are trying to do. Think about my questions. I will return tomorrow. If you wish to cooperate, it may be considered at your sentencing. If not, we have enough evidence without your testimony. The choice is yours. As she walked away, Ravik called after her. Why did you wait so long? Your fleet could have attacked us at any time. Why give warnings at all? Jisoo stopped and turned back. Because we hoped you would listen. We genuinely hoped you would choose peace. That hope is not weakness, Commander. That hope is what makes us human. And when that hope is proven foolish, when species choose violence despite every chance to avoid it, that is when you see what humans become. When we stop hoping and start acting. She left him alone, with his thoughts and the knowledge that the galaxy had fundamentally misunderstood what human patience really meant. 3. Months after the Thalian adjustment, as the conflict came to be known in history books, the galaxy had settled into a new understanding of humanity's place among the stars. Trade routes that had been dangerous for decades were suddenly safe. Pirate groups that had operated openly for generations quietly disbanded. Warlords who had been planning expansion campaigns suddenly discovered urgent needs for diplomatic conferences. The phrase, "Now I'm getting annoyed," had entered common speech across dozens of languages. It was used in jokes and warnings. Parents told misbehaving children that they were reaching stage 3. Traders used it to indicate serious business negotiations. Everyone understood what it meant. Everyone knew where it came from. The trial of Ravik and his command staff took place on Valora Station. The courtroom was packed with observers from 40 different species. Cameras broadcast the proceedings across the galaxy. Son Wunam led the prosecution with quiet efficiency. He did not shout or make dramatic speeches. He simply presented evidence. Video recordings of the attacks, testimony from hostages, ship logs showing the chain of command for each hostile action, financial records proving the piracy operation. The case was methodical and overwhelming. Ravik's defense attorneys, provided by the Galactic Court and actually competent, did their best. They argued military necessity. They claimed misunderstanding of human warnings. They suggested that Thulian culture had different concepts of acceptable warfare. But the evidence was too clear. The violations too obvious. The verdict came after 3 days instead of the predicted 3 years. Guilty on all counts. Ravik and 17 of his senior officers received life imprisonment. Lower-ranking officers received sentences ranging from 10 to 40 years, depending on their specific actions. Common soldiers who had followed orders but not committed personal atrocities were sentenced to 5 years with possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, Sunwoo stood and addressed the court. This trial establishes several important precedents. First, that all species are subject to the same laws regardless of military power. Second, that following orders is not an excuse for atrocities. Third, that human patience should never be mistaken for inability to act. And finally, that justice delayed is not justice denied. The galaxy can count on humans to pursue accountability, not revenge. The 17 systems that had been under Thulian occupation were now free. Human peacekeeping forces remained in each system, but not as occupiers. They trained local defense militaries. They helped rebuild infrastructure that the Thulians had destroyed. They provided technical assistance and trade agreements, Captain. Jisoo-Yoon found herself assigned to one of these peacekeeping missions on a world called Parnox. The local species, the Parnexians, were cautious around humans at first. They had lived under Thulian occupation for 12 years. They expected their new human protectors to be the same kind of overlords. When do you start taking resources? One of the Parnexian leaders asked Jisoo during a meeting. The Thulians always said they were protecting us. Then they took our minerals, our food, our young people for labor. Jisoo looked at the leader calmly. We are not the Thulians. We do not want your resources. We want stable trading partners and peaceful neighbors. Our mission here is simple. Train your defense forces to protect yourselves, help you rebuild your economy, and then leave. We expect to be gone within 2 years. And if we ask you to leave sooner, then we leave sooner. You are a sovereign world. We are guests. Helpful guests, we hope, but still guests. The Pernexian leader studied her face for a long moment. You really mean that? Yes, we really do. Over the following months, the Pernexians discovered that humans actually kept their promises. Food aid arrived with no strings attached. Engineering teams helped repair power plants and water systems without taking control of them. Human military advisors trained Pernexian soldiers and then stepped back to let them lead their own units. One day, a young Pernexian soldier approached Jisoo during a training exercise. Captain, I have a question. Why did the humans wait so long to help us? You could have defeated the Thulians years ago. Why did you let us suffer under their occupation? It was a fair question, and Jisoo did not dodge it. Because we did not know you needed help? The Thulians claimed the occupied worlds had joined them willingly. We had no evidence otherwise. When we started having our own conflicts with the Thulians, we investigated and discovered the truth. At that point, freeing the occupied worlds became part of our war objectives. But you could have investigated sooner. Yes, we could have. And that failure is on us. We should have looked closer at Thulian expansion. We should have questioned their claims more critically. We learned from that mistake. Now human intelligence services monitor all major powers more carefully, not to spy on peaceful civilizations, but to identify situations like yours before they last 12 years. The young soldier nodded slowly. Thank you for the honest answer. On Valora Station, Ambassador Ji-Wan Lee had become something of a celebrity. Other species diplomats sought her advice. Junior human negotiators studied her techniques. She found the attention exhausting but understood its importance. The Galactic Council had invited her to lead a new initiative, standardizing warning protocols across all member species. The idea was simple. If everyone followed clear escalation procedures like humans did, conflicts could be resolved before they became wars. G1 stood before the Council to present the proposal. The human system is not complicated. Clear communication, documented warnings, reasonable time to comply, and most importantly, genuine attempts at peaceful resolution before any military action. We propose that all Council members adopt similar protocols. A delegate from a warrior species stood up. But this removes the element of surprise. It telegraphs our intentions to enemies. It does, Guan agreed. That is the point. Surprise attacks and sudden warfare are products of fear and distrust. If everyone knows the rules, if everyone understands the escalation process, then conflicts become choices rather than accidents. You choose to ignore warnings. You choose to continue hostile actions. And you choose to face the consequences. She pulled up a display showing conflict statistics. Since the Thulian adjustment, piracy in this sector has decreased by 78%. Unauthorized border crossings are down 63%. Trade disputes being resolved through arbitration instead of force are up 147%. These numbers are not because humans are patrolling everywhere. They are because everyone now understands that hostile actions have predictable and unavoidable consequences. The Council voted to adopt the protocols as recommended guidelines. Not all species would follow them, but enough would to make a difference. Captain Minho Park received a promotion to admiral in command of his own battle group. He stood on the bridge of his new flagship, reviewing deployment orders. The ship was sleek and powerful, equipped with the latest weapons and defensive systems. Systems he hoped never to use. Admiral, his new tactical officer, said, "We are receiving reports of aggressive actions by the Vorthon Collective in the outer systems. They are claiming territory that belongs to other species. Should we respond?" Minho pulled up the reports and read them carefully. The Vorthons were a new power, recently achieving faster-than-light travel. They were testing boundaries, seeing what they could get away with. Open a communication channel, he said. Standard frequency. Make sure they receive it. The channel opened. Minho's face appeared on screens across Vorthan space. This is Admiral Minho Park of the Human Defense Fleet. The Vorthan Collective has engaged in unauthorized territorial expansion. You are violating the sovereignty of 3 independent worlds. This is unacceptable. Cease all hostile actions immediately and withdraw to your recognized borders. This is your first warning. The transmission ended. In Vorthan command centers, military leaders looked at each other. Some wanted to ignore the warning. Others remembered what had happened to the Thulians. What do we know about human warnings? The Vorthan Supreme Commander asked his intelligence officers. The senior intelligence officer pulled up files that had circulated throughout the galaxy. Videos of the Thulian adjustment, analysis of human military capabilities, excerpts from Zephyr's famous paper on human warfare doctrine. They give 3 warnings, the officer said. After that, they attack with overwhelming force. The Thulians received 3 warnings and ignored all of them. 18.9% of their military was destroyed in less than 6 hours. The Supreme Commander was quiet for a long time. Then he made his decision. Send a response. Tell the humans we are withdrawing to our recognized borders. And open diplomatic channels. If we want to expand, we should negotiate for territory rather than take it. His subordinates looked shocked. But Supreme Commander, we have a strong fleet. We do not need human permission. No, the commander agreed. We do not need their permission. But we do need to avoid their attention. The Thulians were stronger than us, and look what happened to them. Pride is not worth annihilation. Admiral Minho received the Vorthan response 12 hours later. He read it and allowed himself a small smile. Tactical, stand-down alert status. Maintain normal patrol schedules. Send a message to the Vorthans confirming that we received their withdrawal notification and that we appreciate their cooperation. His tactical officer looked relieved. Another conflict avoided. That is the goal, Minho said. Winning wars is easy when you have overwhelming force. Avoiding wars entirely is much harder, but much better. Lieutenant Doyan Han, now promoted to commander, managed the human intelligence network that monitored potential conflicts throughout the sector. His team tracked aggressive behaviors, military buildups, and diplomatic tensions. When they identified potential problems, they alerted the appropriate human commanders. It is like being a teacher, he told his staff during a training session. You watch for bad behavior. You correct it early, before it becomes serious. You establish clear rules and consistent consequences. And you hope that eventually, everyone learns to behave without needing constant supervision. One of his junior analysts asked, but what if a species is strong enough that they think they can challenge us? What if someone decides to test whether the Thulian result was luck? Doyen looked at the display showing human fleet positions throughout known space. Then they get the same 3 warnings. The same opportunities to choose peace. And if they refuse, they get the same response the Thulians got. The system works because it is consistent. We do not make exceptions. We do not change the rules based on who we are dealing with. 3 warnings, then. Action. Every time. Pilot Yunha Bei had become an instructor at the Human Fighter Combat School. She taught new pilots not just how to fly, but how to think about their role in the military. You are not warriors seeking glory, she told a class of eager young pilots. You are deterrents. Your job is to be so good at what you do that nobody wants to fight you. Every simulation you run, every skill you master, every technique you perfect, it all serves one purpose: making potential enemies think twice about ignoring our warnings. Oh. A student raised his hand. But instructor, what if someone does ignore the warnings? What if we have to fight? Yunha met his eyes seriously. Then you fight with the same precision and discipline you bring to everything else. You remember that you are not trying to kill enemies. You are trying to stop hostile actions as efficiently as possible. Disable their ships. Capture their personnel. Document their crimes. You do your job professionally, without hate, without rage, because we are not a species that enjoys war. We are a species that is very, very good at it, and that is a huge difference. On a distant station, Borak the Kelvin merchant sat in his usual bar, telling stories to a new generation of traders. The young ones always wanted to hear about the Thulian adjustment. They wanted to know what it was like to witness the moment when humans stopped being patient. "I will tell you the truth," Borak said, his fur gray with age now. "I was terrified. Not of the humans exactly, but of what the whole thing meant. See, I had lived my whole life in a galaxy where strength meant you could do whatever you wanted. The strong took from the weak. That was just how things worked." He took a drink and continued. "The humans changed that. They proved that strength could be used to enforce rules instead of break them. That power could be a tool for justice instead of conquest. And that scared me because it meant the old ways were ending. The galaxy would not be the same anymore," the young trader asked. "But is that not good? Is it not better to have rules?" "Oh yes," Borak agreed. "Much better. Safer for people like us. Better for trade. Better for peace. But change is always frightening, even when it is good change. The humans forced the entire galaxy to grow up a little, to accept that actions have consequences, to understand that patience is not weakness. These are good lessons, but they were not easy lessons to learn." Back on Earth in a quiet office at the Defense Ministry, a strategic planner was writing a report. The report analyzed the long-term effects of the Thulian adjustment on galactic stability. The conclusions were cautiously optimistic. "Human military intervention has created a new paradigm," the report stated. "Species now understand that aggression carries certain costs. But more importantly, they understand that these costs are predictable and avoidable. The three-warning system is not a threat. It is a roadmap. It tells potential aggressors exactly what will happen and gives them multiple opportunities to change course. The greatest success is not that we destroyed the Thulian military. The greatest success is that we have not needed to destroy another major military force in the 3 months since. Word has spread. Lessons have been learned. The galaxy is more peaceful not because we patrol it, but because our response to aggression is now understood to be inevitable and overwhelming. However, we must remain vigilant. New species will always test boundaries. Rising powers will always wonder if they can succeed where the Thulians failed. Our success depends on consistency. Every warning must be genuine. Every threat must be credible. And every response must be proportional but absolute." The report concluded with a recommendation: maintain current force readiness. Continue intelligence monitoring and never, ever bluff about warnings. In space, human ships patrolled their regular routes. Diplomats negotiated trade agreements. Scientists explored new worlds. Families traveled safely to colony planets. Life continued as it always had, but with an underlying stability that had not existed before. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, a small ship belonging to a young species made an aggressive move toward a neutral station. Within minutes, a transmission arrived. A calm human voice delivering a familiar message. "This is your first warning. Cease hostile actions immediately. You really do not want us to get to the third one." The ship stopped, retreated, opened communication channels to apologize and negotiate. Because now, finally, every species in the galaxy knew the rule. Humans give 3 warnings. After that, they get annoyed. And when humans get annoyed, Earth's warships attack. But more than that, every species now understood the deeper truth. Those 3 warnings were not threats. They were gifts, opportunities, chances to choose peace over destruction, diplomacy over war, life over death. The humans had proven they could destroy anyone who challenged them. The Thulian adjustment had removed all doubt about human military capability. But what made humans truly dangerous, truly powerful, was not their weapons, or their ships, or their training. It was their genuine desire to never use any of it. That was the lesson the galaxy learned. That was the new order that emerged from the smoking ruins of the UN. The Leon fleet, the most terrifying species known. Space was terrifying precisely because they tried so hard not to be, and that made all the difference.